The Board of Directors meeting for DRCOG for April 16th at 6:30 p.m. And, Madam, do we have a quorum? We do have a quorum. We are in business here. At this point in time, we'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. However, I would like to ask Jim Taylor if he would please come to the podium and lead us in the pledge, Mr. Taylor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But I would let Jim live a day in memory when he used to be the chair leading us in the pledge. So thank you. If we would take roll call.
Eva Henry. Here. Bill Holen. Elise Jones. Dennis Harward. Greg Stokes. Tim Mock. Here. Christy Fanganello. Here. Chris Nevitt.
Here.
Jack Hilbert.
Here.
Gail Watson. Connie McLean. Don Rozier. Casey Ty. Bob Pfeiffer.
Here.
Bob Roth. Renee Peterson. Sue Horn. David Spellman. Suzanne Jones. Tim Plass. And Justin. Lynn Baca. Cynthia Martinez. Paul Donahue. Kathy Noon. Doris Trular. Here. Ron Engels. Catherine Hyder. Doug Tisdale.
Here.
Gail Christie. Here. Jim Benson. Here. Charles Sigmund. Eric Hockmeister. Todd Riddle. Laura Keegan. Mike Spees. Randy Penn. Joe Jefferson. Did I hear a here? Okay. Okay. Mark Gruber.
Here.
Joyce Thomas.
Here.
George Heath. Jennifer Weinberger. Lisa Jones. Bob Easton. Amy Shears. Here. Henry Ergott. Paula Bovo. Here. Sarah Shakaris Graves. Here. Ron Rakowski.
Here.
Brad Weasley. Stacy Luberger. Tom Quinn.
Here.
Phil Cernanek.
Present.
Jackie Millay. Jim Gunning. Gabe Santos. Jeff Moore. Hank Dalton. Bob Muckle. John O'Brien. Ursula Morgan. Gary Shields. Sean Forey. Joe Gearlock.
Here.
Joyce Downing. Here. John Dyack.
Here.
Gary Howard.
Here.
Deborah Williams. Sandy Pennington. Val Vigil.
Here.
Herb Atchison.
Here.
Joyce J. Here. Doug Young. Simon Tafoya. Deborah Perkins Smith. Here. Bill Van Meter.
Here.
As stated before, we do have a quorum. We have roll, and we've done all that. At this point in time, I would like to turn over to Mayor Gerlach to introduce the new appointment, I believe, from Netherlands, sir.
Thank you. This is Chris Larson. He was sworn in less than 24 hours ago, and our board voted for him to be the liaison for Netherlands, and I will continue as the alternate. So if Chris can't make it, then I'll be able to come back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much and welcome, and thank you for coming down. Joe, who made the motion to nominate him? No, just kidding. Don't. But anyhow, are there any other alternates? And we have also from the town of Lyons, and we were notified by the mayor before, and I think we have Mr. O'Brien, John O'Brien. John, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chair.
John, are you councilman or the mayor? You are the mayor. Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for coming, and glad you're here, and welcome. So do we have any other? Ron?
It's my honor to introduce my neighbor from Centennial, the one and only Doris Trular. Council Member District 2. Yeah, I never remember the district number.
Yeah, Doris is the alternate from Centennial. Mayor Noon is not here this evening, so thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to come down.
She must be busy rehearsing her speech. Tomorrow's the state of the city speech.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Any other introductions? Missing anybody? Great. Well, thank you very, very much. Okay, at this point in time, we'll move forward in our agenda. And the first thing we do is there any... Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda. We have a second. Any discussion or any questions or desires to change the agenda? Seeing none, we will call it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. The agenda is set. Ladies and gentlemen, the first portion we're going to have to get into this evening is our public hearing portion. And I want to explain how this is going to take place because we have to establish a correct and proper record as we do this every year or every cycle, when we come forward with any of these changes. So what I'm going to do is read in the topic of the agenda, and then I have a specific script that I will be reading into the record that legal has approved and our staff has approved, and we want to do that so that we have a clear, pure, and proper record established. It is going to take place in two phases. One is the introduction of the public hearing, then there will be a presentation by staff, and then a continuation of the public hearing at that point in time. All those who do wish to sign up to speak and who have signed up to speak, please keep in mind you are limited to 3 minutes. We will look at up here and watch Connie very closely. She will give you the warnings of when you're about to be hooked and pulled off of the podium. So with that in mind, so our public hearing portion is regarding the 2013 Cycle 2 amendments to the MetroVision 2035 plan, the 2035 MetroVision Regional Transportation Plan, the DRCOG, CO, and PM10 conformity determination, and the Denver Southern Sub-Area 8-hour ozone conformity determination for the board's benefit. This is attachment A. Now, for beginning of the public hearing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack Hilbert. I'm chair of the Denver Regional Council of Governments. Thank you all for coming tonight. This evening, the Denver Regional Council of Governments is holding a public hearing on proposed amendments to DRCOG's 2035 MetroVision Plan, 2035 MetroVision Regional Transportation Plan, and the companion air quality conformity determination documents. The public hearing of the Denver Regional Council of Governments is hereby convened. The items being considered tonight were proposed through DRCOG's 2013 Cycle 2 MetroVision Plan amendment process. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for all who are interested in the proposed amendments to provide comments to the board. Receiving public comments is important to the board's decision-making process, and we do welcome them. Anyone wishing to speak should register on the sign-in sheets on the table in the reception area or should have previously made a request to speak through the DRCOG website or by phone. All comments via email, website, or in writing are automatically included into the public hearing record. Any received prior to this meeting will have been provided to the board already, and we have none. If you wish to submit written testimony to be included in the official record of the hearing, please give it to the secretary after you speak. Board members are free to ask questions of those testifying. Brad Calvert and Jacob Rieger, the DRCOG staff, will now summarize the proposed amendments and the results of the air quality conformity determination. Brad, please.
Well, I will start. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Jacob Rieger, I'm the Transportation Planning Coordinator here at DRCOG. We're talking about two elements of amendments tonight to our MetroVision plans, the MetroVision 2035 Plan and Growth and Development Supplement, and the 2035 MetroVision Regional Transportation Plan. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Brad Calvert to talk about the MetroVision 2035 Plan amendments. At the conclusion of his remarks, I will come back and talk about amendments to the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan.
Thank you, Jacob. Yes, Brad Calvert, I'm a planner here at DRCOG, and this will be very short. There has been a much more detailed summary that has been available during the entire public comment period, but just to give you a very high-level overview, I will do that on the amendments related to the MetroVision 2035 plan. So DRCOG received 3 proposed amendments from local government partners. All 3 of those amendments were related to the issues of being designated as urban centers in MetroVision 2035. We received 1 new proposed urban center submitted by Littleton, and then 2 major revisions to existing urban centers, both submitted by the City and County of Broomfield. The Growth and Development Supplement lays out a process by which staff reviews those urban center proposals. That includes not only a staff review, but a review of an evaluation panel, and all 3 have been reviewed and approved or recommended for approval by both staff and the evaluation panel. Since some people like to see pictures, I thought a few pictures might be helpful. These are both of the Broomfield major revisions. So the one on the left-hand side is basically the southwestern portion of the interchange of I-25 and State Highway 7. You don't see a lot there now, but there are many entitlements that have already been granted in this area. Somewhere on the order of magnitude of 6,000 residential units have already been approved, and up to, I believe it's 17 million square feet of commercial development, including a new town center. So there's lots that's going to happen and change in this area. And then on the right-hand side, also from Broomfield, is an expansion of their original Broomfield urban center. You might recognize this area on the left-hand side. This is sort of the Arista development with the First Bank Center. So this is the other side of 36, and they are proposing an expansion of that area along the same lines. Many new developments have already come in and been approved in this area. Downtown Littleton, probably familiar to everyone, but their proposal does include the traditional downtown, including the downtown Littleton light rail station. So in addition to the local government initiated proposals, DRCOG staff actually initiated a minor proposal as well for an amendment, and that is for the process that we use to designate and recognize what are called rural town centers in MetroVision 2035. Very minor adjustment related to the amount of urban growth boundary that these areas can include. Rural town centers were originally designated in 2004, and since that time we've had many expansions of the overall regional total associated with urban growth boundaries, so we thought it appropriate to also expand the entitlement that's allowed for rural town centers. So a very simple suggestion to go from 2 square miles of a contiguous urban growth boundary within rural town centers to 3 square miles. And that really sort of concludes my overview, and I'll turn it back over to Jacob.
Now I will talk about proposed amendments to the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan. We have 4 types of amendments under consideration. The first are, and before I go through the amendments, let me just sort of back up and say that the types of amendments under consideration are major capacity projects, so major road widenings, interchange type projects, rapid transit type projects. Our major big ticket items are the types of projects that we're talking about. Within that, we have 4 flavors of amendments this evening. From CDOT, we have CDOT funded projects under their RAMP program, the Responsible Acceleration of Maintenance and Partnership, several proposed RAMP projects. RTD has requested 2 fast tracks changes to the fast track system. We have some local government roadway projects. And finally, we have some minor amendments to change completion dates of projects that are already in the plan. This map shows the roadway projects, the major roadway projects under consideration and proposed amendments. All of the projects that you see here would be new projects in the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan if they are approved. So just kind of looking at these, the C470 managed lane projects at the bottom, project at the bottom of the screen here, State Highway 2, widening in Commerce City, a project on the mountain corridor of I-70. These are all, again, CDOT RAMP projects, Responsible Acceleration of Maintenance and Partnership projects. So these are the major roadway projects. And then on the rapid transit side, on the fast track side, RTD has requested 2 amendments. One is to extend North Metro in the Regional Transportation Plan from the 72nd Avenue station to the 124th Avenue station. And you can see that here in the middle of the map in blue. And then on the I-225 rail line to relocate the Montview station about a half-mile north and rename it the Fitzsimmons station at the request of the University of Colorado. These amendments to meet federal requirements, need to go under an air quality conformity analysis. So we model the regional roadway and rapid transit networks containing the proposed amendments that I mentioned. And we do that for several pollutant tests for air quality conformity. We did that work along with the Air Pollution Control Division at the state. And all of the amendments that I've described this evening in the Regional Transportation Plan passed the air quality conformity analysis. And that concludes my remarks on proposed amendments to the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rieger. With that, it is 6:54, and the hearing is now open for those who have signed up to speak. When you do come forward to speak, please give us your name and an address you choose to give us, and please identify the specific amendments you are commenting on. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to testify. Please keep your eyes up here. We will give you notice when your time is up. You will have not finished by the end. Obviously, please ask that at that point in time you conclude your remarks and that you would please stop talking at that point. When you hear your name called, please approach the microphone area and present your testimony. At this point in time, we have 2 people signed up to speak, and we would like to call them forward at this point as we begin that. First one is going to be Steve Klossing from the Denver South TMA and EDP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Good evening to the members of the DRCOG board. My name is Steve Klossing, 304 Inverness Way South in Englewood, Colorado. I am the executive director of the Denver South TMA and the executive vice president of the Denver South Economic Development Partnership. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the inclusion of the C470 ramp program or ramp project in the Regional Transportation Plan. I have 6 pages of talking points here, so in 3 minutes. So I'm going to dispense with the talking points and make only 3 points to you. The first is that for those of you who participated in this project, I doubt that you have participated in many other projects that were as extensive or as well led and chaired as this particular one was. Not only was there a extended stakeholder committee, which our organization served on, but there was an elected stakeholder committee, a technical committee, and a very robust citizen outreach that included town hall meetings, public open houses, and so forth. The result of that is a plan that represents the wisdom and input and very, very hard work over more than 2 years of meetings of that committee and that group. I believe that every jurisdiction along the corridor participated, and there were dozens, if not hundreds, of meetings. So we are very supportive of the results that have come out of that and the proposal that is before you. Brings me to my second point, which is who would have thought that looking back 10 or 20 years in the past, we would have thought of that as the good old days of public infrastructure financing. Today, we're faced with challenges that are new and that are getting harder and more difficult every year. The elected officials that served on our steering committee did an incredible job of coming up with an innovative, creative proposal to finance this project that is realistic and answers today's issues. Finally, I want to make a comment regarding the economic development viability of this project. There are hundreds of thousands of people who live along the E4 or C470 corridor. Whether they're going to the I-25 corridor, Aurora, DIA, downtown Denver, it doesn't matter. They're going to get there, the majority of them, by car. If we're going to remain competitive in today's environment, we are going to have a 21st century transportation system. C470 is an integral, important segment and part of this transportation plan. We would encourage your serious consideration and inclusion of this project. And in closing, I want to congratulate the elected official committee for the wonderful job that they did on this. Thank you.
The next speaker is Art Griffith from Douglas County.
Art Griffith from Douglas County Engineering. I am here also seeking your support for the C470 ramp project that's before you. In February of 2011, we formed a coalition and we started moving very quickly, and it's very exciting to come before you today and seek your support for this project. We have a lot of challenges before us. We adopted some mission statements and goals, and I echo everything that Steve just said. But the biggest challenge that we faced was finding funding for this project. You know, about 1 cent federal gas tax raises about $1.5 billion a year annually. Sounds like a lot of money. But we need 11 cents just to get back to inflation levels. We used to have a $400 million general fund that helped assist us with transportation. That's now zero. So our biggest phase was, how do we come up with a reliable project that we can fund? What a challenge. One thing we learned is that one shoe doesn't fit all. We're living in a different time period. Gone are the days of 80-20 splits with no debt to be repaid by those who benefit from using the facility. The C470 Coalition considered a number of ways to fund this project: property tax, sales tax increases, vehicle registrations, head tax, and as part of that, we considered tolling. We considered tolling the entire facility, and we considered expanding the facility and paying for the new managed lanes through tolls. The most critical thing for this project to work is reliable funding. It has to be practical, and we have to depend on it if we're going to ask the public to come up with private activity bonds with no recourse. And that's where we're headed on this project, along with the TIFIA loan. So we considered HOV, we considered the complications that came with that, and we had to look at our risks of how to fund this project the best we can. My closing remark is, let's don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. We still got a big public process to go forward with. We have a public hearing coming up in this fall. We have some outreach meetings. We're going to vet the HOV issue with the public. But in this case, we need this dependable, reliable revenue source to make this project work. And we want, as the local agencies, the coalition, to have control over that so that we can assure that that funding will come through. The C470 project is a great project, and in order for that to succeed, we have to maximize revenue and minimize our risks. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. That is the list of people who have signed up. Is there anyone in the audience who has not signed up that would like to testify? Please give us your name and your address and the organization you represent.
My name is Jim Taylor, and I live in the city of Littleton, and I formerly served on the C470 Corridor Coalition, and that's the one I want to talk about right now. It was mentioned that we had a number of public information meetings. I attended all of those, and there were always positive comments being made about how relief needs to be granted to this highway. It is bumper to bumper, lots of hours of the day, and you can't get anywhere if we don't do some expansion of this. I also participated in the telephone town hall. We had a couple thousand people who participated in that town hall meeting, and they stayed on the line, most of them did, for the entire time that we were presenting the information and answering the questions that they were asking. We have the support of elected officials along this corridor, and it is just a much needed traffic relief, and I would urge you to go forward and approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else? One more time. Anyone else? With that, I will close the public hearing at 7:02. At this point in time, the public hearing regarding this matter and the Cycle 2 inclusions is concluded. And I would ask if there are any questions of the board members. Is there any input from any of the board members? If the board would indulge, I would just like to take 1 minute as a member of the C470 Coalition and explain just a couple things to you, if I can, please. The town hall outreach that we made, we actually phoned and reached out to 45,000 citizens through that process. We held 5 actual town hall meetings ran by elected officials and our staffs. In those 5 town hall meetings, there was anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 people waiting on the phones at any time, in which a series of calls and presentations were made. So we did a lot of outreach. We had almost 10 public open house meetings with citizens, as well as several town council meetings and board meetings where the public was engaged in that process. We continue to have our monthly meetings with the C470 Coalition. It's been going on now way over 2 years. And like I said, we have looked at a whole variety of options regarding financing, and that is why we're here, is the fact that the board has voted and has concluded on a methodology for which we are going to seek financing, and that is why I think we meet the RTP requirements, and we ask for your support of that particular aspect. If you have any questions regarding C470, would love to just please be happy to answer any of those for you. You can reach out to me after the board meeting or at any time, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of those for you. Thank you very much. With that, this brings tonight's public hearing to a close, and thank you for your public testimony and your interest in this particular item. So at this point in time, we'd like to move on to the report of the chair. And at this point, we would like to talk about the RTC meeting. I do not have as copious notes as our really fantastic previous stack appointee, Beth used to always give, but I do have just a couple points I want to talk about as to what we went over. We approved the, 2015 budget for the stack, and which actually went to the Transportation Commission. We also discussed the telephone town halls that will be coming up, and we talked about funding allocations regarding the Regional Priority Program. We talked about the cash management workshops that they're going to be having, and we talked about some of the funding that is built up by DRCOG and CDOT on a variety of items also. Then we went into the faster safety funding program presentation, and we talked about 4 different options for funding those safety programs. I can tell you the key criteria that was discussed. One was when you look at how the formula works, the first one is crashes only. Well, we do quite well if you just want to look at crashes only. That would be obvious. We have the most population. Then you go into severity of crashes, which then you talk about fatalities. Then there's fatalities only. Well, quite frankly, when you start looking at that on a per capita basis, we're not at the top of the chart, and it begins to come down. Then you look at property damage and a combination of crashes and fatalities, and the numbers begin to bottom out a little bit more or come down in our region, and everything begins to level out and balance across the state. The final thing was the recommendation from the staff at CDOT, which was actually, I think, the one that I know for a fact we did adopt, which was the National Council of Transportation Safety's formula that they use, which is a whole combination of things, including the items that we talked about, which seemed to me the best and the very fairest way in order to handle the formula across the state. We're not talking about a huge amount of money, by the way, by no means, but at least we had a distribution process that we believe is fair, and it represents a lot of the concerns communities across the state have. There are 10 different members that represent the stack, and so they were all there and represented this particular issue, and that is the one that the stack voted on and recommended to go to the Transportation Commission for their review and approval. With that, I don't have anything else to add to the stack meeting. Try to keep it simple. And we also had the RTC meeting yesterday, and at the RTC meeting, we basically approved what we just heard, what we will be hearing today, which is the some of the amendments and stuff that are on our agenda. And so I think that that was approved and sent forward also. Approved unanimously. In fact, it was a great meeting. It lasted about 10 minutes. That's the way I like them. So it was, as you can say, some of this stuff is pretty much a no-brainer, and so I thought that was really a good thing. And one thing before I turn it over here, I would also like to, we did have a new member, I think, join us. Sir, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Dennis Harwood. I'm newly appointed in Broomfield. I actually came from a town hall meeting in Anthem tonight. That was fun. and first time I'd done that. So, 4 months ago I was sitting on the couch complaining about government, and then Dave DRCOG left the council, and one thing led to another, and I ended up getting appointed. Now, people said that, you weren't elected, but actually he ran unopposed, so so I feel like I had to get the 6 hardest votes in Broomfield. So anyway, I've worked with local governments, 1,100 local governments throughout my career, providing technology, and just a passion for me, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this, so thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome. I would like to say that 4 months ago we were the problem. Tonight you are. So anyhow, it's interesting. Be careful what you ask for. So with that, I would like to turn us over to our executive director, please.
Well, you're a hard act to follow. So I'm not even going to try to be funny. Just want to call attention to 2 handouts at your desk tonight. One is the replacement page for your at-a-glance folder. For those of you who have a complete folder, this is just a replacement page, but with Joe Gerlach's announcement tonight of the election of Chris becoming the new Netherlands rep, this is already out of date. But if you want to stick it in there for now, there are, for those of you who haven't been to a meeting recently, there are complete at-a-glance folders spread around the room, so feel free to take one. These are just quick and easy little fact sheets about DRCOG and different things that are going on right now. The other really important handout that I want to bring to your attention is next week's award event. This is all about you, all about your communities, and all about the great things that you all are doing to help implement MetroVision. The event is on April 23rd. It's a week from tonight. It's right next door, so it's very convenient. The reception begins at 6, and we've worked a deal with the museum. If you haven't been there, the exhibits will be open, so please come by and visit the museum if you haven't been there before. The actual event itself starts at 7:15. And this is complimentary for DRCOG board members. There's some instructions here at the about 3/4 of the way down the page. If you haven't registered, do so right away. There is a charge for your guest of $59, but for DRCOG members, it's completely free, and we would love to have you. We always have a great crowd, a lot of fun, and it's wonderful to hear about all these great projects that are going on in the Denver metro region. Just a couple of other things I want to let you know about. We are kicking off the 2nd phase of the board's organizational development activities. For those of you who joined us at the February board workshop down in Colorado Springs, we talked a lot about principles of policy governance. We talked about executive policies, and we talked about the potential for expanding the role of board officers. And at your last board meeting, you took some action related to all of that. One was you said that the administrative committee should start working on the executive policies right away. That's kind of their purview anyway, because they're responsible for oversight of the executive director. So they actually started on that this evening, and actually got through all of the executive policies. Staff will be bringing back some additional information for them, but they made a lot of progress this evening in a very short period of time. The other thing that you did at the board meeting last month was you gave the chair the authority to appoint members to a governance committee. 14 of the board members and alternates volunteered to participate in that. Many of you are here this evening. We took a little poll to see what everyone's availability was, and your very first meeting to talk about principles of policy governance will be on Monday, April 21st, 10 o'clock here in the DRCOG offices across the lobby in Wolf Creek Pass. At some point, the work that the administrative committee is doing on executive policies and the governance committee is doing on principles of policy governance will kind of come together to be sure that they're not conflicting in any way, and actually are very complementary of one another. And then the goal is to get both of those things adopted by July, if not sooner. And then the third phase then will be to talk about the board structure, the committee structure, dues, and those sorts of things. So that's kind of where we are with that. If you have any questions or concerns about what's going on with organizational development activities related to the board specifically, just let me know. We're certainly doing a lot of work internally as well with staff. Those of you, again, who were at the board workshop, as well as those of you who worked on mission and vision, met Jerry Stiegel, who's our Director of Organizational Development. He's a great facilitator, extremely knowledgeable in this area, and is really helping us make a lot of good progress really quickly. Just a couple of other things. I wanted to let you know that next week the DRCOG officers, the CDOT Metro Area Transportation Commissioners, Executive Director Hunt and I are all getting together to meet over lunch. You will recall, if you were here at the last meeting, the MPOs had expressed to the Transportation Commission that we had some concerns about how RAMP was going to be implemented, about the MPO's abilities to maintain compliance with federal rules and regulations, about how the CDOT handled its various accounting and financing issues. That has prompted this lunch meeting next week with the executive committee and the transportation commissioners. As a follow-up too, we had a great meeting at CDOT a week and a half ago. All of the MPOs in the state came to the CDOT offices. I don't know, Deb, maybe 15 to 20 CDOT staff easily were there. We had a big group discussion about a variety of issues and concerns, and then we broke up into MPO regions and met with our regional staff. Very, very, very good meeting, and I think the primary lesson learned was good, frequent, direct communication benefits all of us. So we're really looking forward to this additional meeting with the transportation commissioners next week, and are looking forward to an era of candid and direct communication with one another going forward. And then finally, I just want to remind everyone that Connie has sent out a request for letters of interest if you would like to serve on the MetroVision Issues Committee. If you'd like to serve and you haven't filled out a form, she has them here now. I know that some of you hesitate maybe to sign up for MVIC because at one time we had term limits. The board eliminated that recently. There are no term limits for MVIC, which should really help maintain some of that institutional knowledge that we lose through your own elected term limits, let alone creating more here at DRCOG. So while we want MVIC to always be this great, broad, representative group of board members and alternates, we also want to not close the door on maintaining that institutional knowledge. So if you'd like to sign up for MVIC and you haven't already done so, Connie has the information, but she needs you to get back to her by April 25th so that those appointments can be made. And it's important that we get those appointments made sooner than later because MVIC actually makes appointments to the Regional Transportation Committee as well. And it's time for us to make those too. So if you're interested, please sign up this evening. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Fantastic. At this point in time, we'll move on to our public comment section. Now, this is different than the public hearing. I don't want to accuse anybody. These are regarding items on our agenda for this evening. So, with that, if there's anyone in the audience, I would like to remind you that we do have a 3-minute time frame. It is also, you can please restrict your comments to only items that are on the agenda this evening. And please do not talk about any previous public hearing items or of ones we just had or those in the far past. So again, this is just regarding items on our agenda this evening. Would anyone like to come forward? Have any comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and we'll move on to the board's agenda. When we look at our agenda this evening, we have a consent agenda and we have an action agenda. We have on our consent agenda two particular items, but they are on consent. And then on the action agenda, we have two items, but however, one of the items, which is discussion of legislative issues, has two sub-bullets. You will notice that items A and B. So I would bring the board's attention to those, but the first item we will deal with this tonight is the consent agenda. Any item that the board member...
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda. Any items any board member would like to pull from the consent agenda to discuss? Okay, seeing that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. And abstentions. Right, we do pass the consent agenda. We now move on to the action committee. The first action agenda item is a consideration for a motion for the MetroVision Issues Committee recommendation regarding gap closure criteria for 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. Steve Cook, MPO Planning Director.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is attachment D of your agenda packet, or page 30 of the PDF document. Is my mic on? Oh, there we go. I'll get a little closer here. There we go. All right. This action in attachment D will make a minor revision to the criteria the board approved last month. This criteria will be used for evaluating roadway capacity projects for inclusion in the fiscally constrained regional transportation plan. The revision, as noted in your memo, would be made specifically to the language associated with the gap closure criterion. Action is needed so we can evaluate the roadway capacity projects for identification in the upcoming 2040 RTP. Identification of such projects in the RTP is required by federal law. Action is needed tonight so we can start the project evaluation calculations literally tomorrow morning, and thus keep the schedule for adopting the new 2040 RTP by the end of the year. As noted, the MetroVision Issues Committee, or MVIC, recommended the revision to the language at its meeting 2 weeks ago. So with that, I'll just ask if there are any questions.
Any questions of staff? Seeing none, I would seek action, please. We have a question?
I would move to approve the MetroVision Issues Committee recommendation regarding the gap closure criteria for the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan.
Second.
We have a motion. We do have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. It does pass. We move on at this point in time to our second agenda item, which is discussion of state legislative issues. Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to start this evening with some updates on the current bills that you've already taken positions on. And actually, I would like to, on a few of them, ask for changes in position based on some recent actions by the legislature. So if you look at on the first page of the handout, I'm not sure what page it is on your documents or on the internet, but it's with we have under aging bills, Senate bills 12, 13, and 14. We had taken a position to monitor them with the discretion to support depending on how the funding issues on these bills interacted with the $4 million that DRCOG and others were requesting in the long bill. Since the long bill is closed now, and we did get the $4 million, we talked about this before, these bills, along with many others that have been sitting in Appropriations Committee for in some cases months, have now started to move, and all three of these bills have now passed out of Appropriations Committee, Senate Bill 12 and Senate Bill 14, with reduced amounts. So I think so they've been funded, we've been funded, and I'd like to ask for a motion to support all three of those bills.
I move we support all three bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on these particular items? Seeing none, then I would seek a vote, please. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Does pass, sir.
Thank you. And then on, I guess on mine, it'd be the third sheet, at the top of the page, Senate Bill 143, actually a similar situation. It's passed out of committee, out of the Appropriations Committee, and has been funded. And I think it would be appropriate if we supported that bill at this point.
I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions.
Thank you, sir. And then on the next page at the top under transportation bills, House Bill 1243 actually would like to recommend that we move to a monitor position. This bill has been amended so that the $3.5 million now will come out of the general fund instead of out of the HUTF. And I'd note that our partner organizations like CML and CCI have also either moved to a monitor or support position.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Discussion? Motion? We have a motion to move this to monitor. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions.
Thank you. And then a couple more. I just want to give some updates here before moving on to the new bills. At the bottom of that page, House Bill 1301, I know there's been some interest on this board on the Safe Routes to Schools bill. That also has passed actually through the whole House and is now in Senate Transportation. However, it was cut back from the $3 million requested to an amount of $700,000. But I suppose it's a step in the right direction anyway. And then on the next page, Senate Bill 125, we talked about this last month. DRCOG, this is on the Uber Lyft bill. DRCOG was successful in getting an amendment in House Transportation Committee to explicitly exempt public ride-sharing programs. So obviously, DRCOG operates the ride-sharing programs, and we were pleased to actually hear the House sponsor, Representative Dan Pabon, give DRCOG a compliment for bringing the attention or this issue to their attention, because it was something that they hadn't thought about and figured that actually other local governments around the state would benefit from this provision. So I'd like to thank our attorney for coming up with the actual language, and George Dibble, our lobbyist in the back there, for helping me work the committee and the sponsors to get this bill amended. And that, I think, was in House Finance today, so I think that's starting to move through the process. So that's all I have in terms of updates on the new bill, on the current bills. And I have one new bill to present to you, a couple new bills to mention to you that were just introduced today and I haven't had a chance to look at, and then I think Doug has a bill that he wants to bring to your attention. So our new bills in the next attachment is Senate Bill 180, and this is a bill that is proposing to transfer what is currently an old age pension program, an old age pension dental program that is currently being operated in the Department of Health, and they want to move it to a different department and redesign it, move it away from the old age pension program and focus it specifically on low-income seniors. Senator Kafalis, we worked with him in drafting this bill, and he's had the bill drafted so that the Department of Health Care Policy and Financing, which we call HCPF, would take the program over and allocate the existing funds, which is about $3 million total, to the 16 area agencies around the state, and have the AAAs then take that money and grant it out to local dental providers to provide this service. And so I'd like to recommend that we support that bill, even though we're getting some pushback from the state and we're in negotiations with the state agencies about getting this approved in this form. But we'd like to recommend support for the bill as drafted.
I move we support. So move. Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any discussion on this bill?
I did.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Would like to go back, sir. I do have one member would like to have a question about, and we
Sure.
missed it earlier, regarding House Bill 125. Councilman Nimitz.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for not being quicker off the mark. So, so Senate Bill 125 was amended as we had recommended. So does that change our position on it? Was simply amend it? Do we now have a position on the bill, or do we just wander off and don't care?
Well, I would say, Mr. Chairman, that is up to your discretion. I think we took the position to amend rather than like support with amendments or something like that, but just to amend because we had expressed a narrow interest in making sure that our ride-sharing programs weren't unintentionally regulated under the bill.
I see.
So we weren't really taking a position on any other aspects of the bill.
You were just saying if you leave it this way, we have a major problem with it. Fix it, and we no longer do.
Right.
Okay, I think that's fine.
Thanks. Good.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Okay, so two new bills that I had just noticed were just introduced today that I think would be interest to many of you in the transportation area. And I know since we didn't have a chance to send them out to everybody to look at, I'm not necessarily making any recommendations. I'll leave that up to the board. But there was a bill introduced dealing with alternative fuel vehicles and HOV lanes. And I think it makes it more stricter criteria for which types of vehicles can use the HOV lanes. And I think it puts, for instance, more restrictions on hybrids being able to use those lanes. But again, I haven't been able to read through the whole bill. And the other one is the so-called High Performance Transportation Enterprise Transparency Bill that had been rumored coming out of the issues that legislators had raised a month or so ago over the US 36 project. And I'm sure, Deborah, I don't know if you want to say anything. I'm sure you're familiar with both bills at this point.
Well, I heard rumors that they were going
came out today,
to introduce the HPTE one. So I haven't seen the exact wording yet, but we are interested in monitoring that one.
Yeah.
Any discussion on these items? Mayor Wachowski?
Well, given that our next meeting is the 21st of May, and given that the legislature is scheduled to adjourn May 9th, I believe?
Yes, 7th. May
7th. I would recommend that, having great trust and confidence in the executive committee, that we have Rich read the bill, give a recommendation to the executive committee, and then the executive committee make a recommendation that we could either do telephonically or by email to either support or oppose. And I could see one that might be a strong opposition, being the one on public-private partnerships.
I am.
Now, I do know we have a 2/3 rule on, but I think that the second bill mentioned has such a critical long-term potential impact on transportation in this region that it would be negligent on our part to sit idle.
What we can do is, what we need to do is, one of our biggest problems here is we have the 2/3 rule, which and we can't officially vote by email, period. But we can get a consensus agreement, and so we can't take an official position. But what we can do, and we can direct staff, I think, to get information out to the membership as quickly as possible to get some type of a consensus direction, how the membership feels as to which direction we should go. But keep in mind that our current bylaws require us to have just a simple, a straightforward 2/3 vote to support or to oppose an item, and we are not allowed by our bylaws to do an email vote or tally. Giving the authority to the executive committee, though, then violates the 2/3 rule issue, which we can't do that either. So I think we're going to run into that. But however, I do appreciate that. But there's got to be a way in which we can get.
I think you could.
Can we take a preliminary position and then based on what knowledge we may have, that was kind of the scuttlebutt? I don't know if it has a particular number on it or not.
Yeah, I can tell you real quick.
One moment here. I'll
sorry.
Maintain some quorum here. Okay.
Sorry.
Great. And so then the question, sir.
The bill number for the HPTE bill is Senate Bill 197.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Well, I was just going to say, I do think we have to be careful about the two-thirds issue. Maybe an alternative would be that staff could provide information to all members on a timely manner, and then our jurisdictions can take action as need be so that we're all informed. And it could be that individually we need to go down and put in our 2 cents worth.
Although, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rakowski?
Recognizing the two-thirds rule, however, it would be, if there was a consensus to take Mayor Cernanic's position, and then both Rich and the executive director could say to appropriate members of the committees that the speaker would send this, or Mr. President would send this to say it is the consensus as opposed to the actual support, and that doesn't violate the bylaw.
Interesting.
It's a way to skin the cat.
You know what my recommendation would be at this point in time, so that we can stay, because we have a couple of issues. One would be, we got to get feedback.
Yeah.
Let's find out how the membership feel on what the issues are, because one of the problems we have, we don't know what's in the bill.
Yeah.
And right
we can
now, without
certainly
seeing
get
what's
that
in that
information.
bill, I'm very concerned about we're going to be taking a position or giving consensus on something I'm just not sure about. And it would be hard for, I think, I'm looking at the membership, some of them around as I'm looking on the floor, saying, wait a minute, you want me to take a position on something I don't understand at all. I think what we can do is that once the bill's announced, I think DRCOG can send out a communique. We would ask that the membership pay close attention, identify the issues of concern and risk or that you have about it, send that information in, and I think just within his communications with members of the committees, he can relate the concerns that memberships have expressed, members have expressed, who they are, but also have to express that DRCOG is officially not taking a position. That's an option. Mayor Etchison, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think Ron has got a good point, too, is many of us are monitoring this thing because we're anxiously waiting to find out what they actually put in it. We've had continued communication with CDOT and our other representatives because we're worried about what they're going to do. And it's been changing by the hour. And right now, as much as we're trying to monitor it, we don't know what the last version was. But if it comes out anywhere near where it started, I think everybody, at least in the metro area, is going to be going after it, because it will kill all of us with trying to get highway funding for the entire state, much less any one particular area. But I agree, we don't know what the final version is. If it just came out today, none of us have had a chance to look at it. Very much expect most of us will probably take a position of opposition to it, but I'd still need to see what the final is. But I know the last version we looked at is, I can't get anywhere near it because it stinks so bad.
Mr. Morrow?
And Mr. Chairman, also, I think along the same lines of what you were just describing, we have had a few situations in the past where a bill was introduced and heard in committee in between board meetings, but it was an important enough issue and also one that we felt there was enough board direction in our adopted policy statement that I was able to go before the committee and give the caveat that the board hasn't had a chance to take an official position, but we have this other direction, and I think we could do the same type of thing.
Okay. Any other discussion or pleasure? Okay, I think the final direction then I'm hearing at this point in time, unless someone would like to step in and provide some other option, but is that as soon as the details of the bills are known and they're identified, I think staff will send that out to all the membership. Membership will have an opportunity then to review and to respond. He will duly note the concerns of each member that responds, and also based upon our policies and our direction and our actual what our beliefs and philosophies are here at DRCOG, represent that to the committee members as appropriate.
And one last thing before turning it over to Doug, I know you're all interested in the owner-occupied affordable housing bill. It still has not been introduced, and the latest I'm hearing is that it's looking less and less like it will ever be introduced. So, and others may have more information than me.
Okay. Excuse me, Commissioner Holland, you had a question?
Would like to follow my colleague here with another recommendation on some legislation.
Mayor Tisdale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to bring a new bill to your attention this evening and ask for the group's opposition to a bill, and that's specifically Senate Bill 14-181. That's the photo red light bill. So it's 14-181. And I know there are lots of issues that people like to bring up about photo radar. I can tell you that Cherry Hills Village actually has a very strong attitude about the one single photo radar camera that, or red light photo camera that we have at University and Bellevue. And for us, it's a matter of public safety. University and Bellevue is a very busy intersection. At that intersection, we had fatalities in 2006 and in 2007. We then installed the photo red light. We have had no fatalities since that photo red light went in at that intersection. We had 2 years in a row where we had fatalities. We've had none since we put in the photo, and we have had a steady decrease in accidents at that intersection at 70% year over year each of the 6 years. Reduction in accidents. It is a matter of safety, and we believe that municipalities ought to be allowed to have photo red light enforcement if they would like to have it, and trust them to work it appropriately and to do it in such a way that in fact it does enhance traffic safety. We think that's a DRCOG issue. It is part of our mission in terms of transportation, and so I would ask and would move that the board adopt a position of oppose on Senate Bill 14-181.
Second.
Second. Heartily second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Vigil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would speak in favor of that motion only from the standpoint of the issue of local control. I think we need to fight for local control as much as we can and not allow anybody to come in and infringe on our powers. So from that standpoint, I'd say in favor of it.
Mayor Cernak.
Yes, I want to echo what Val mentioned with regard to local control, and that there's a lot that can be done around the implementation of this, and to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have similar statistics to Cherry Hills Village in our 3 intersections where we use photo enforcement. We've actually done an analysis, have changed it over time as behavior has changed, and there's a lot of leeway in how you implement it. And in Littleton, what we have is, first of all, it's triggered by the photo, and then the vendor actually views the video along with the stop pictures that are there and verifies that there is an infraction. Then it's reviewed by a Littleton police officer to reinforce that there was an infraction before any citation is sent. And so it's a responsible implementation, and when folks say it's automation and we've thrown it away, I will tell you that at least with our implementation, there's 2 people that have a chance to look at it as well.
Mayor Rakowski.
As you may have noticed, one of the primary people speaking against the bill in committee was one of our senior police officers, and we have extensive statistics on our 3 locations, and I would heartily endorse Mr. Vigil's comments and Mayor Cernanic's on local control, which is really a home rule issue, notwithstanding the Supreme Court case brought by our good friends in Commerce City 10 years ago, Jim, where the Supreme Court basically said home rule doesn't play, but the Supreme Court of this state and the United States has reversed itself in the past on other items. So I don't think, for those of you that may be well schooled in this issue, that Supreme Court case that was brought by Commerce City and lost should be considered controlling. So I would strongly support the motion to oppose.
Commissioner Holland.
The county does not have any of these devices. However, I do live in northern Aurora and represent that district, and I know that our police chief in Aurora vigorously supported the proposed the termination of the legislation. I, as one who have violated several times that procedure, have become a lot more cautious and careful, and it really has had a personal impact, not only financially, but in terms of my driving habits. I don't talk on the phone anymore, and I've slowed down a little bit because I'm an older man and I can't take all the movements.
That's called age, by the way. But Councilman Benson.
Thanks. Well, Ron, I've only been living in Commerce City for a little less than 10 years. The only red light ticket that I've ever gotten was in Greenwood Village.
Which goes to show that behavior modification works.
I did pay the fine, and I would just agree with everything that Mayor Tisdale said. We only have one. We're a city of 45,000 people, maybe 50,000 by now. I don't know, but we only have one, and it's at the worst intersection in the state of Colorado, according to everybody that I ever talked to at CDOT, and that's the 60th Avenue, Highway 6, Highway 85, and Parkside Drive. I mean, you can approach it from 5 different directions. When you get out in the middle of that intersection, you feel like anything can happen to you at any time, and we need that. It's resulted in decreases in accidents also. So I really think that we should not support any bill that says we ought to do away with that. I think it's a useful thing. We don't do it for the revenue, but it's a safety concern, especially at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Pfeiffer.
Our community opposes the lights, but we're adamant, we are adamantly for our local control. So, I mean, granted, our community doesn't support it, but I'm gonna support the motion on the fact that I'm kind of the other end of the community. We will not put these lights, but that's our choice, and it's my local choice. So for that, I'll be supporting the motion on the floor for the city of Arvada.
Executive Director Shuffle.
I don't want anyone to change their vote because of anything that I'm about to say, but I would really like to caution you not to base this vote on local control or home rule, but to base it on transportation and safety. Mm-hmm. There will be many issues in the future that come forward that have to do with home rule and local control that are not germane to DRCOG. Transportation and safety, very, very germane to the business of this organization, as Mayor Tisdale has pointed out. So while it flies in the face of what you just said, Bob, I would strongly advise you to keep your support germane to the business of the organization. Otherwise, we will be inundated over time with issues that are not really related to transportation and personal mobility, growth and development, and those commitments that we have up there right now under our mission statement that is really the essence of what this organization does.
Councilman?
Well, then, yeah, and I'll just put this on the table, and anyone can comment or not, but my issue with it, let's take the home rule out then. Why is the state trying to tell me what to do on my roads and my intersections that I fund and pay for? I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have to comment.
What I'd like to do this, because we're going to call for a vote here shortly, I'd just like to leave a final comment as we put this forward. I want to make sure you understand one thing. It is a germane to DRCOG to, even though I philosophically may differ, but it is germane regionally to the fact of we do in the business of public safety, transportation safety. Number of accidents and intersection are a direct factor in how we score and finance safety, road safety projects that you come forward here for funding. And the more projects we have to ask for safety dollars because of the greater number of accidents, the less money is available that can go to capacity and other roadway projects that have a greater importance. Not that safety is not important, but if we didn't have to spend it on that, wouldn't it be wonderful? And we could spend it on other projects. So that is why I will probably support this particular motion. So with that, I would like to call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to oppose this bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose the motion to oppose, please say aye. Nay, excuse me. Abstentions? It does pass. You have your direction, sir. I think we had another item.
Yes, Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Holen.
I would like to recommend support of the members of DRCOG for a piece of legislation that's passed the House already and is going into a hearing in the Senate tomorrow, which I'm going to testify. It's a minor bill, but it's a tip of a big iceberg of a problem relative to public safety and health. And that bill is HB 1283. And it's a piece of legislation that's a first step in an effort to begin to control the epidemic problem of prescription drug abuse in this community, in the state and this community, and the nation. Last year, over 40,000 people died of overdoses as a result of prescription drugs. This piece of legislation would provide some minor changes in the prescription drug monitoring program, which is currently in operation by the state, by encouraging more participation by physicians in the program to identify individuals who are seeking prescriptions drugs as painkillers, to ensure that they're not doctor shopping, that they're not getting larger doses from their pharmacies. In addition, it provides additional funding to improve the computer program that doctors use now to identify those patients they're treating. In addition, it expands the opportunity to designate people within the medical staff to have access to this program so that they may assist the physician in drawing up the information prior to the physician seeing the patient. In Arapahoe County, just this last week, we lost 7 people due to prescription drug abuse. They range from age from 65 to 21 years old. The addiction rate is increasing significantly, particularly among women since 2008. The increased death rate amongst women utilizing prescription drug increased by 406%. It's a major problem, and this legislation is the first step in that area to begin to at least get us a handle for the physicians to identify those people who are abusing the system.
I think if I can, and I'd like to take Chair's prerogative, thank you very much for that great description of that bill. I don't think it's one that is germane to DRCOG's actually taking a position on it, but I think every jurisdiction here just heard a good reason why you should probably call down and have support the particular bill if your organization or your particular membership decides to do so. I don't think it has germane to transportation, but it is germane to our public and to our communities as a whole. So thank you very much, sir, for that explanation. Anything else from the membership? Okay, seeing none. Sir, do you have any closing items?
I am done.
Okay. Yes, you are.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
But
thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much, Rich. We appreciate it. And at this point in time, we'd like to move on to informational briefings. The first item on our bill, I think, will be pulled and delayed. However, I would like to have a reason why we're going to pull that particular item, and I would like to have from the SCI committee, Jim Taylor, explain why, please.
Good evening, Board. I'm Jim Taylor. I chair the Sustainable Communities Initiative. Chris White is also on our executive committee. He is the executive director of the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. He got a phone message a few moments ago that his house was being broken into, and he disappeared, of course, to go check on his house. So we respectfully request that you delay this item until next month's agenda.
Okay. I think we can do that, sir. It's informational, so we can do that. Thank you. I would like to get a poll of the hands of people in here who have messages from their burglar alarm systems when your house is being broken into. And I need to write this down, please. But no, just kidding. but that's unfortunate, and so we will pick this up next week then. Okay. We have now from Jayla a report on changes to the aging program. This, by the way, is attachment H.
Thank you. I'm Jayla Sanchez-Warren, the Director of the Area Agency on Aging. I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit tonight about the AAA, some of the challenges that we're facing, some of the new opportunities that are out there for the AAA, and then changes that I think we need to make in order to be viable, sustainable, and relevant in the future. A little bit about DRCOG. DRCOG's been the Area Agency on Aging for 40 years. Our job is to help people live independently as possible with dignity and choice in the place that they call home. So most people want to stay in their homes and communities, but sometimes they have to go to nursing homes and assisted living, and we have a program that helps people when they go into nursing homes and assisted living. We really feel honored to serve this population. We take it very seriously. We know that these are people, some of these people fought for our freedom. They taught us. They cared for us. They challenged us to be better. They built our communities and businesses, and our quality of life is better because of the work that they did. We have more choices and more opportunities. Our work has always been hard. Trust me, it's always been hard. But it's becoming harder because there's an increase for our services. As most of you know, our population is aging in the region, and it's aging rapidly. Every 9 seconds, somebody turns 65. So that's yeah, and that will continue, kind of, not exactly every 9 seconds, but pretty much close to 9 seconds.
I don't want to say this, but some of you may want to leave real fast if you want to reach that point, but go ahead.
And that will continue for the next 15 years. All right, but that's not the only demand. The other thing is that, here's the good news, Jack, people are living longer. Our 90-plus population in the region increases by 18.7% between 2012 and 2017 in a 5-year period. Our 90-plus population. The problem is the resources aren't increasing as fast, right? And they probably never will. So how are we going to do this? In addition, sorry, I didn't know we had... In addition, we have other external factors that are contributing to the way that we do business, or affecting the way we do business. You know what's happening at the federal level. You know the financial situation we're in as a country. There's no appetite to increase funds for these programs. But there's also no appetite to scale back or eliminate programs either. Healthcare costs are soaring. And so there's all sorts of programs that have been put in place to help those healthcare costs go down. There's programs to reduce hospital admissions, reduce hospital readmissions, to keep people out of nursing homes because that's the most costly care, to keep people from going to emergency rooms. There was a Supreme Court decision called the Olmstead Act that says we must provide services in the community and not prematurely or inappropriately institutionalize people. However, there was no funding attached to that, and so we struggle. We have this court decision, but we don't have the money to build the infrastructure to serve these people appropriately. We have gotten guidance from our leaders in Washington, the Administration on Aging and Administration on Community Living, that we have to do business differently. If we are going to be relevant, if we are going to serve this increasing need, if we're going to do more with less, we have got to become more entrepreneurial. So what does that mean? There is so much demand out there, and even more need. And my staff and I have a tendency to want to try and help everybody, but we know we can't do that. We need to focus on our core programs and what we do best. We need to think about who should we be partnering with? Who can help us make these needed changes? How can we do business differently? We're already starting to partner with hospitals in our hospital transitions program, and we're working to partner with the Veterans Administration, both diversifying our funding sources. But who else should we be partnering with? Can we offer our services to health plans, to big business? Who else should we be talking to? These are the questions we're asking ourselves. We need to help others understand how we can help fill gaps and meet needs. An example of this is our hospital transitions program. We partner with 7 hospitals in the metro area. Their readmission rates for people on Medicare, they average 20%. If they go through our hospital transitions coaching program, our readmission rate is 4.5%. This not only helps the patient. How many of you like to go to the hospital? Yeah. Most of you wouldn't want to be readmitted, so it not only helps the program, it helps the hospitals save money, but it helps all of us as taxpayers save money as well. You know, we are required to develop regional plans on aging. We are required to identify the gaps in services. And what we come to realize is that we can't do it by ourselves. We need to take the success and influence that we've established and developed over the years and combine that with others so that we can make these changes that are needed and fill these gaps in services and help people live independently at home as long as possible. We need to increase the quality of care and improve access to community-based services. We need to learn how to market ourselves so that others know what we do. We need to learn how to promote our programs. We have to figure out how we're going to serve a new population, a growing population, but a different population. By the year 2030, 46% of the seniors in Colorado will be Latino. We're not serving Latino populations well now. We have to figure out how to do that. We have to serve people with disabilities. You know, this is good news, but people with disabilities, folks with MS, with lupus, things like that, they used to die before they got old, and now they're living. So how do we serve them? It's a different population. We need to capitalize on our skills and knowledge and experience. The AAA, my staff know what to do. They're really good at what they do. We are experts in aging. We are leaders in aging in the nation. We have to think and we have to plan strategically about how we're going to meet the increased demands and how we're going to serve those new populations. And we have to identify the areas that we're best suited for and where our partners have need. Like I said, we have to change the way we do business. We have to operate more like a business and less like a human service agency. Now, my staff can develop a care plan for a very frail elderly person with several comorbidities. They can deal with a combative resident with schizoaffective disorder. They can help navigate the world of insurance, fill out a Medicaid application, and work with and counsel a caregiver who has lost somebody in need or someone they love. but they don't teach business acumen in social work school. We don't have that expertise, and we need to develop that expertise if we're going to be viable in the future. We need it on our staff, and we need it on our advisory committee. We need people who know about health plans, and we need medical personnel, and we need financial people to help us make this transition. We need to learn to sell our services and our programs, sell ourselves, talk about why you should partner with us, as opposed to the 3 graduate students that just started a new company. Why do we offer a better service than they do? We need to measure our outcomes, but we need to measure the right outcomes, right? The state and the feds make us measure certain outcomes, but those aren't necessarily marketable. We have to figure out what people want to know, and we have to tell them the value of that. We need to gather and analyze more data. We're doing that in our transitions program, and we're learning how to do that in other programs, but we have to do it for all of our programs. Because data is the new currency. Experience is the backbone, but data is the muscle. We have to show, we have to prove to people that what we do is valuable. Now, the state and federal government is asking for this, right? So we have to do a lot of evidence-based programs. We have an evidence-based fall prevention program. Our hospital transitions program is evidence-based. We have evidence-based exercise and health promotion programs. We have to do that for all of our services. We have to show that there is a cost benefit, that we're saving, we're using the money wisely, and that we're saving the system money. We cannot continue to spend at the rate we're spending. We cannot continue to put people on Medicaid prematurely, because that's the only way they can get service. We have to figure out a way to do business differently. We've learned from the people we're serving, and we've benefited from them. And now we have to figure out how to partner in new ways, how to fine-tune our skill sets, how to integrate our services, diversify our funding sources so we can continue to deliver superior care and services to the older adults in this region. So that's what I'm trying to do. Any questions?
Commissioner Holland.
I would just like to present to my colleagues here a very classic example of what the point that she's trying to make. And that is, during sequestration, we were faced in the county with a cut in our home program, which provided elderly care to elderly constituents, as well as the Meals on Wheels program, the nutrition program for elderly. We had approximately 600 elderly people over the age of 70 who were receiving 2 meals a day from Meals on Wheels. The county cost for that per person was $375 a month. We were faced with cutting those 600 people receiving those benefits in half. The result of that would have been that those 300 individuals would more than likely have to sell their assets and move to a nursing home.
Living or nursing home, yeah.
That cost to the government of the United States and to our taxpayers would have been $4,000 to $6,000 a month for those people. That effort made absolutely no logical sense. We're seeing more and more of that in the recent budget released in the House of Representatives, which has significant cost reductions in those programs, as well as the SNAP program, where they would be reducing SNAP dollars by $128 billion. There's no logic in looking at what the impact of these actually have on the taxpayer. The decisions are being made by with a lack of information and data, as you so eloquently point out. I think it's our responsibility as elected officials to ask those questions and delve a little bit deeper into the impact of these easily structured recommendations. Thank you.
Mayor Cernanek?
Yes, I want to just emphasize the point that Bill made and that Jayla's talking about. And, around the table we have to realize that DRCOG, we are the board for the Area Agency on Aging. And we can talk a lot about the transportation dollars and the ones that we give out. What Jayla does is take a small amount of money that we have and translate it into a quality of life for those folks that are at some point where they're frail. And you have two choices. Well, actually, you don't have choices, but you have two paths. You're either going to die, or at some point in time, you're going to get frail. And so this is not just talking about those people in our community, it's also our own future and what we're looking at. And one of the things that's important, and folks have to know my day life is I'm an actuary by professional training and certainly understand the demographics and the statistics on that side. And I'm also a financial advisor, and I'm working with folks and thinking and planning for their futures. And very often it's a multi-generational discussion, and it's always unique. It is always unique. And one of the things that Jayla and her group do is they actually develop that care plan, which is in fact what I look at is a living plan. So how are those things going to be addressed? Bill will talk about and has talked about the difference in keeping someone at home, where 85% of us would rather be, and how we can keep folks at home. And it also makes sense for our community. When we start talking about transportation dollars, and we talked about, a few things spent here will save us big dollars there. And earlier we were talking about safety, and when we don't have to spend on safety, we can have dollars for possibly having congestion relief or safety going forward. What we're talking about here is how we, and if we ever want to talk about the unfunded liability that we all have when we're frail, and we want to talk about those caregivers out there that are being frayed at that point in time. But the other part that I'll leave you with is if you don't have a care plan for yourself and you haven't thought about it, at what point in time do you want your children to be changing your diaper at some point in time? Or do you want to possibly have a living plan that might have someone other than your children that might be a little more professional about it and how they're going to deal with it? So I'll leave with that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Councilman Benson.
I just wanted to ask Commissioner Holen, what was that you said about 2 free meals a day if you were over 70? I'm just joking.
Just give me a call and I'll have someone show up at your house tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
we don't have all the answers. And if you have some ideas, we'd certainly be willing to listen, because this is a big shift for us. This is, we just used to have to focus on, we got the money from the federal government or the state government, and we had to go out and provide services, and we had to account, write reports on how we served people. We didn't have to be competitive. We didn't have to think strategically, really. We didn't have to do these things. And there are other organizations out there wanting to do what we do and get paid for it. We've got to figure out how we can get different dollars so that, when we had sequester, we were impacted significantly by that. We can't have just one funding source. It has to be diversified so that, services, if we wouldn't have had a state increase, thank you, Rich Morrow, last year, we would have lost 21,000 meals. We would have had 12,000 rides that weren't provided to medical appointments, including dialysis. We would have had people who lost services. We can't be so dependent on one funding source. Thanks.
Jayla, thank you so very much, and thank you for your passion, by the way, on this topic. It's very, very obvious. There is one thing I would like to bring to the board's attention, the members in this room, because we have two different types of government entities between municipalities and counties. Counties have the Health and Human Services departments, which are typically responsible for providing these services to our elderly community. But there's something we all have in common. This is something that is becoming endemic, systemic, I should say, within our community, and it's really not a good thing. And what it is that more and more and more Medicaid-supported facilities are no longer being built or being made available. And as a result, more and more, all we see is private care facilities. And what that's causing is people are having to relocate in order to go to a facility because they can't afford a private facility. And many of those locations, people have to get on waiting lists. They're having to have local caregivers, family members do them, or frankly, they're just, it's a horrible situation where they're left in these environments. I actually know of one situation, someone actually relocated literally about 100 miles in order to get to a facility quicker. That's one thing. So Medicare supported versus private pay homes, care facilities are a critical issue. The next thing is something that we all can control. And we got to think about this a little more seriously and open, and we do it in our community right now, and as I hit our planning people all the time, and that is we don't, and many of these communities do not allow for apartment-type dwellings to be structured into our existing homes. Conversion to mother-in-law appointments mother-in-law type apartments has got to be the future. If we don't allow them to have some sense of individuality by allowing them to live in our homes and convert those homes in a manner where they have privacy and individual capability by allowing them to have a secondary kitchen and a secondary bath, we are then forcing them to go to nursing homes and forcing them to go into care centers because of our zoning laws and requirements, because nobody wants them people living in our neighborhood. One day we're going to be one of them people. And so I would just recommend that you please, in your planning processes and your zoning laws, begin to look at allowing and having a little more flexibility in allowing that type of zoning and redevelopment and building, because I can tell you right now, most planners don't like it because they're afraid it's going to become a rental unit. And consequently, I know that's where my planners take me all the time. And my answer is, I don't care. I'll rent to my mom all day long. But at any rate, the fact is we have to start thinking as leaders that we have a changing dynamic in our society. So I'm sorry, I'll get off my, stop pontificating. But, yeah. Are you kidding me, ma'am? She charged me rent for 2 years. But anyway,
Mr. Chairman.
Just kidding. Commissioner Holland?
Jim, I do have a basement apartment. You're welcome to come and live there with me.
There you go. All right. Okay, with that, we are moving on now to, if we can, please, our committee reports. I will tell you, we will, first one is the stack. I think we'll actually have already commented on the stack and gave a brief report on that. We'll move into the Metro Mayor's Caucus. The ever prolific orator, Mayor Tisdale.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good evening. The Metro Mayor's Caucus met on April the 2nd of this year, and they met in Westminster, courtesy of Mayor Atchison. We appreciate the hospitality. We had an UA report, that's the owner-occupied attached housing report, and it presaged basically some of the negative vibrations that Rich Morrow reported on earlier. Kevin Balmer also provided a legislative report as to other bills that were pending before the legislature, many of which we've discussed here tonight. Commerce City Mayor Sean Ford reported on the 2014 World Lacrosse Championships coming to Commerce City and encouraged all of us to support that and to participate in that. We then had Dr. Steve Fisher of the Colorado Futures Center at CSU report to us on their Colorado Sustainability Study, which is the study that CSU has done on the state of our economy. And the state of our economy is scary. See me if you'd like to have the link to his scary slideshow. Maria Garcia Berry of CRL Associates reported on the MPAC 64 polling that had been done regarding the potential for a 0.7% sales tax increase to support transportation. The good news from the polling was that the voters hated it. The bad news was that after education, they hated it even more. So that was a non-starter is what it came down to, unfortunately, for a very well-intentioned effort. Don Hunt from CDOT reported to us that P3, in fact, by virtue of things such as the MPAC 64 polling that was done, that P3 will be the future of transportation in Colorado. We just hope that it won't involve community meetings anywhere along the Boulder corridor. And that was the Metro Mayor's Caucus meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Moving on to the Metro Area County Commissioners. Commissioner Rozier is not here. I believe Commissioner Jones, you were not at the meeting. I was not. So by default, Commissioner Henry, were you there?
No, I wasn't there either.
Okay.
They had happened.
Yeah. Well, I know they had one. I happen to know it was on Health and Human Services. But with that in mind, Commissioner Holen, were you there? No, I was not. No. So
Did anybody show up for the meeting, or did you guys just all skip out?
Yeah. You know, it's beginning to make you wonder when you're not getting invitations to certain meetings. I got to tell you something right now. So I think we just had, all of us had vacations and other issues in the way. So we will suspend with the MAC notes at this point in time. Jayla, any other presentation on the Advisory Committee on Aging?
Same kind of thing. I was on vacation. Mayor Noon, I thought was giving the report, but she's not here, so no report.
I was with her. So the Regional Air Quality Council, Joyce Thomas.
Yes, I was at the meeting, although I did have to leave a little early. Tax season being what it is, I left my notes at home. It ended yesterday, and my mind is mush. However, we had an update from DRCOG to DRCOG staff members on the 2040 Metro Vision Plan. We had a recap of the area, it's AQCC, on the adoption of the oil and gas rules, and it had minor changes and was approved as it read. That was presented by Ken Lloyd, the director of RAC. They talked about, Meg Alderton talked about the RAC electric vehicle display at the Denver Auto Show. They also gave out tickets. I got Sunday off and went to that show and went to that showcase. They had 3 cars. They wish they had had more. There was a Tesla on display elsewhere. There was also a Leaf elsewhere, but they had a Volt and they had a Cadillac ELR and one other vehicle. I'm sorry, I can't tell you what it is. I forgot. We also had updates on the plans for summer ozone program and the mow down pollution. Meg Alderton talked about the fact that they are getting out as much as they can with their small budget to go to community events in our cities and hand out information about how to help not pollute, going to electric mowers and push mowers. Charge Ahead Colorado grants has to do with the charging stations, and I was told this evening by Mayor Gerlach that Nederland is getting 2 of those. I think there was a total of, I hope I got this number right, I think it's 39 charging stations that are being granted. So also RAC is going to be able to buy a couple electric cars. So anyway, or at least they're able to grant those electric cars. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Mayor Thomas, thank you. Very well
Welcome.
done. All right, moving on to E470, Mayor Rakowski.
There were several housekeeping items which I'll skip. The 2 significant items were Commerce City leading the way once again, is going to be building shortly the northwest ramp at Tower and Pena. So that will give us some more options in that area as the growth continues there. And I'm sure that Councilman Benson was instrumental in having that happen. And last but not least, very interesting that this may portend other jurisdictions. E470 on a piece of land that's part of E470 but not really going to be needed for anything has negotiated a oil and gas lease which will be receiving $21,600 per year for the next 2 decades.
Wow.
And that's all to the bottom line straight. So for those of you that have oil and gas land where you can start drilling, here's an example of where you can get some money. The money's good. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Van Meter.
Thank you. The RTD board at their Fast Tracks Monitoring Committee earlier this month, had one action item, and that was to approve the recommendation from staff for light rail storage tracks on I-225. This addition is going to improve the reliability and result in operational cost savings for both Fast Tracks and the base system. They approved it at the Fast Tracks Monitoring Committee, and last night approved it as a full board. They also received an update on the annual program evaluation that RTD staff is embarking on. That is our annual assessment for Fast Tracks of revenues and costs. This year it will also be combined with the baseline report to DRCOG on Fast Tracks, which we are scheduled to submit on or before August 1st per this body's direction. And we're planning on providing our board with a preview of that evaluation, the annual program evaluation, in June at their Fast Tracks Monitoring Committee meeting, and then asking their action on that in July in order to make that August 1st DRCOG deadline. Those were the two items brought before the Fast Tracks Monitoring Committee of the RTD board this month. The only other thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention was the Denver Union Station opening on May 9th. Mentioned a couple times before, I think. But more details are coming out. So the actual grand opening is at noon on May 9th, Friday, May 9th. The celebrations and street party will start at 11 a.m. and continue to 6 p.m. Planning to have a beer garden, food trucks, and other free stuff. And earlier that morning, there's also the P3 forum that RTD is hosting on a somewhat more serious note between 8:30 and 11 o'clock. I believe I saw an email just today, correct?
Yep.
To this body with an invitation and more information on that, so I won't give you the boring details, but it will be a really exciting event. It'd be boring to hear me talk about it, but the event will be very interesting. That concludes my update on Fast Tracks.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Yes, sir. Matter for the members? Other matters? Yes, sir.
Yes. I happened to share some time yesterday on a panel with Mayor Murphy of Lakewood, Tom Clark, former Mayor Randy Pye of Centennial, and the topic was transportation and economic development. And there were construction folks and architects and planners and that were included in the group. And just going on Bill's point about what's not exciting to talk about, just something I'll throw out as a potential half-baked idea, which is having an education series. And you know, we've all seen some of these in the Denver Post for those that still get like paper, you know, instead of an electronic piece. But something that might talk about transportation so that folks would understand what it takes to build a street, maintain a street, build a trail, maintain a trail, and understand all of the science that might go into something like that, and bridges and all those other kind of things that we do worry about. And then another element might be what's our investment across the region? If we took an idea as to what all the streets and trails that we have and how much money has been placed into those, and the fact that generally in economics things depreciate over time, and if you started to take even a conservative depreciation rate on that, what might be coming over time, and then for what happens with streets, taking a look at where all the funding sources are, whether we're talking municipalities or counties or the state or money that comes through the Fed, and how does that happen, so that when we start talking about what's the status of, and it could be at the state level, it could be at the region level, it could be at all sorts of levels, but when we start to take a look at that, trying to get the community involved in some of the stewardship concepts around the fact that right now, you know, when I talk to folks, if the street in front of their house is fine, they think transportation's all good and fine, and you know, the money for the other stuff just kind of fabricates from somewhere, you know, that's a germ of an idea that kind of came out of some of that, which is helping folks understand. So when it comes up and we are talking about not raising taxes but using P3 as a funding source for some of our safety and congestion relief issues, and what are we doing in that front, folks may have a little bit better understanding or appreciation for that. And if we want to throw in air quality, we can talk about that as well. But thinking about one of those things, and I don't know if we have a contact over at the Denver Post and want to talk about how to get some of that information out, but it runs a little bit counter to what Doug was talking about, which is the more they know about it, the less likely they are. But we have to kind of find that that was done in a trade-off of what tax they were willing to pay. This kind of starts to precede that and say, hey, wouldn't it be nice to actually have folks understand these wonderful assets that we have, and that not maintaining them means there's a cost with that as well.
Commissioner Holen?
I would just, Phil, I think it's a great idea. I would add to your last point is, what is the cost if we don't move forward with maintenance on these roads, and the long-term liability that occurs as a result of our failure to do the basic maintenance?
Well, the other part that Tom Clark threw in is what a good job Utah's doing, and there are regional competitors. So I think that probably ends up being a little tough for a lot of folks to grasp. So I wasn't going to quite go that far in what.
Great.
Yes, Bill, your point's good.
Thank you very much, sir. Last 2 moments, we're going to adjourn. Number one, I would be remiss if I didn't throw Commissioner Tim Mock in that thing. Were you at the MAC meeting?
What meeting?
They're actually not a member of the MOC, but I thought I'd throw him into the pool. What the heck? And thank you guys very much. You have a safe evening going home tonight, and we are adjourned. Take your nameplates with you, please. Take your nameplates.